So welcome to a special edition of RadioHer presented by the Women in Business Association Scarborough. I am your host, Falak Sheikh, and the co-president of WIBA.
Hi everyone, I'm Nimeesha Fernandez, the co-president of WIBA, and today we're very excited to embark on a new chapter of RadioHer, diving deep into the world of entrepreneurship and embracing a topic that often carries a heavy weight, the F word. Not the F word we think of, but the F word for failure.
So in this 5-part series leading up to Entrepreneurship Week, on the week of March 6th, we're redefining the ins and outs of failures week by week. This series promises to be an eye-opener, a source of 10-minute inspiration, and a guide for those who've always shied away in taking a leap in entrepreneurship or even starting something completely new.
But we're not in this exploration alone. Joining us are two incredible minds that will be hosting the upcoming episodes around entrepreneurship, each with a unique perspective on failure and success. I would love to introduce Elina Chow Clark and Matthew Fuller, both having such diverse backgrounds in entrepreneurship and mental health studies. So first off, Elina Chow Clark is an alumna at UTSC and an entrepreneur in residence for this academic year. She's an entrepreneur for 18 plus years of experience in the private and publicly traded companies in healthcare, tech, and the metals and mining industry. Elina specializes in stakeholder relations, corporate strategies, and marketing. And as a former consultant and senior executive, she has played a key role in helping companies go public and achieve successful exits. As an active member of UTSC's alumni network, Elina is a donor and supporter of 2 incubators at the Scarborough campus, the Bridge and the Hub. And to accompany Elina in this series, we have Matthew Fuller, a stress and anxiety coach based in London, England, who helps his clients navigate the emotions, beliefs, and behaviors that may hold them back from success and fulfillment. With a background in executive coaching, cognitive behavioral coaching, and training in mental health, first aid, suicide prevention, and neuroscience, his goal is to help people to better understand the lens through which they see the world. So we're very excited to have you both on this podcast series.
Hello, so happy to be here.
Thank you, ladies.
Okay, so I guess we can kind of get started in a very short Q&A session. Again, thank you so much for being on our podcast, and we're really excited to kind of take a deeper approach and kind of an open discussion about entrepreneurship and what failure can actually look like. So in this introductory episode, I do want to kind of give a glimpse of what we can expect. So on this note, I want to ask you the first question. What do you hope that university students can take home from this 5-part podcast series?
Thank you, Falak and Nimeesha, again for having us. The key takeaway that I'm really hoping university student take home is that failure will happen, and not to be afraid to pursue entrepreneurship. It's a long and windy road, but failure is inevitable. It will happen, and it's part of the process.
Yeah, I think for me, I just echo that. There's something around making peace with it now, not just as wow, this sucks and it's going to be so arduous and painful, but also thinking, okay, it's going to happen, but it's going to also serve me. It's going to help me grow. It's going to X, Y, and Z. There's something about accepting failure as a teacher that makes it feel less threatening, and it will serve you through the length of your life, not just your career, but your personal life, professional life. Everything we do has that.
Yeah, I just want to add on to that. I love what you said about kind of making peace with it and like accepting the fact that it's going to happen. Because I remember someone told me that if you're going to fail, you might as well fail fast because you're going to fail forward. And I think that was like, it was from one of my internship that I had, and I was just really afraid to kind of take decisions and take the leap in my project. And I'd always be like asking my supervisor if this is okay to do. And that was like the first piece of advice that she gave me, that, you know, if you're going to do something, do it fast because you're going to have to accept it anyways. And you're only going to move forward from there. So it's better to kind of accept that, you know, piece of failure, because, you know, you're only going to be going further and not backwards for it. So, yeah, I loved what you both said.
Yeah, and I completely agree with Falak. I think that especially as a university student, there's so many things that I guess like you have expectations of what university is going to be like, you know, the next 4 years. and then you actually step into that university, I guess, discovery path, and you understand that failure does produce growth. And so, I feel like I've faced failure a lot of times in university, but really ensuring that growth stems from it. So totally agree with what you guys said.
Yeah, Nimeesha, I love what you're saying, that there's this expectation around almost like I'm going to know everything by the time that I finish, and then I need to get sorted now so that when I leave, I'm ready, I'm good to go. Well, I've never met a single person who says that everything's been great since graduating. So I think like that's spot on what you're saying there, and it's developing that behavior and habit of mining that failure for its worth instead of grieving it. If
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Exactly. I feel like always moving steps forward. I feel like that's the mindset to have, because I feel like failure can always bring you back and make you kind of regret or kind of think back to how you can improve. But growth, yeah, I totally agree.
I mean, we've all been brought up to believe that when you fail, it's over, and it's the end. But it's so far from the truth, isn't it? And at the end of the day, if you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough. You're not taking any risks. So that's why we wanted to put this podcast together and say, hey, no matter who you are, and even the most successful people, it was part of this trial and error, to figure out what it is that they want and the right path for them. So failing is in fact part of the game. So it's just an element. So not to feel defeated by them, but like Matthew said, to learn from them, to take the lessons and pivot and do different things or do it better. It's just how we learn.
100%. And I feel like this also stems into our next question, which is, what do you feel is the most common misconception that people have on entrepreneurship or pursuing an entrepreneurial career? Because you both have a very diverse background in entrepreneurship, so I'm sure you can shed light on any common misconceptions.
I think one of the common misconceptions is that there's a linear road to success, and that it's either this or being an executive as well, right? So as a university student, you don't have to pick a lane just yet. So a lot of people go, should I come out of school and start a business immediately, or should I go and work for a corporation and maybe learn from that corporation? And the answer is, either works. It really depends. And often I encourage students to explore the world of the corporate world before they pursue entrepreneurship, because it allows them to explore what industries they like, what capacities they like, what kind of products they want to build. And then they can decide, okay, I'm ready to go build my own thing. Because jumping right into entrepreneurship right at the get-go could be a little bit messy and a lot scarier than it has to be.
Yeah, for me, I think that there's something around this glamorization of entrepreneurship. Oh, I can make my own schedule. I can do whatever I want. I'm in charge. It's like, yeah, you are in charge. It falls to you. All the responsibilities are yours. So this idea that it's just going to be amazingly freeing, you're going to have all this control. It's not really the case. There are some things that are absolutely amazing about being an entrepreneur, and there are other things that are a lot harder than maybe a more corporate life. And so I always talk about this idea of the flip side of the coin, because nothing's free. So if you get this, how are you going to pay for that somewhere else?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, you get all the glamorous side, like the control, the freedom, but you also get all of the burden and the responsibility and the weight of the business and all of the, that's the blood, sweat, and tears phrase is so literal at times. There's been so many experiences that I've had where, we're working late nights where you just kind of go, wow, I wish I had a 9 to 5. Or sometimes you're on vacation and you say, I wish I could turn my out of office on, but you can't. As an entrepreneur, you're 24/7 on your job because you're it.
Yeah, I mean, I cried twice already in the last week because there's something around like this, as you say, Elina, there's this work-life balance thing. I hated it at the time, but I now look back on those moments where I disconnected at 5 o'clock and didn't think about it until I stepped into the office the next day. That was, now I'm like, oh, take me back there. But because with this lack of balance, you have to be so strict with yourself to make sure you're eating right, going to the gym, getting enough rest, because there are times that I work so late, which means my mind's going, I can't fall asleep, which makes me less efficient the next day, which makes me feel like I'm drowning, which, like, all these things, you really have to learn about yourself, what you need, and then stick with that. Because again, the responsibility that we were talking about is not just to the business, but to yourself, so that you can do things for the business to support the stakeholders and clients and all these things that you have to do. So, not to scare people away, it's an incredible experience and you learn so much about yourself, but it is not this, you're not a movie star kind of, it's tougher. Is what I'm trying to say, is it's tougher than we think it is.
To kind of go back to what you were saying, is that I totally agree. And I totally get the whole glamorization of, being an entrepreneur, starting your own business. Because on the other side, I'm on LinkedIn, I see all these amazing startups that people are doing, and it's really like, wow, like they're really living the life. But I totally get it. I think it's so much more than, that upfront picture that people see. I'm sure there's like a lot of sacrifices, a lot of personalization, and sleepless nights that kind of comes into this career. But I can also see that it can be rewarding at times where you feel like, no, this is what I can only imagine myself doing because I'm so passionate about it. So I totally get kind of the two sides of the coin as well.
Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't change my choices in terms of my own pursuit of entrepreneurship. If I were to look back and people said, maybe you should have taken that corporate job, I'd be like, nah, I'm good. Because when you choose the right path, which is why I said at the beginning that you really need to take your time to find what kind of entrepreneur you want to be, what kind of product you want to build. Because when you find it, the level of commitment that you give to it and the discipline that you apply to it is so much more. But then it's also, when it works, it feels just so good that it is something that you're going to continue to chase in your career, even like success after success. I've personally had, luckily and fortunately, been part of many successes where, we've been able to sell companies. So after that, it becomes a bit like a drug. You're like, okay, now what? What else can we make to sell? And because it is such a good feeling when it works. That's why people pursue entrepreneurship. So not to dump on the idea and discourage our students from becoming entrepreneurs, we want them to. It's just, I think the whole point of this podcast is really to encourage students to look at it from a more kind of careful but methodical a perspective and an approach, so that they don't just give themselves pressure to say, okay, let's just be an entrepreneur for the sake of it.
I think that's what I'm excited to kind of hear more about the podcast about, of understanding the realities of what entrepreneurship can be like, most specifically what that failure portion looks like. And again, going back to this glamour, this romanticization of entrepreneurship, I think the series would be great to kind of see what a real perspective would be for entrepreneurship, and kind of taking things into your own hand when you are running a business. So cool. As we wrap up this episode and kind of get a glimpse of what the next 5 episodes are going to entail, the series builds up to an in-person fireside chat happening on March 6th to explore more about entrepreneurship with Elina and Matthew even further. So if you're interested in learning more, the link is provided in the description box below, or you can check us out on Instagram for you to register, and the link will be in the bio, and we'd love to see you there. Again, thank you for listening to RadioHer's new entrepreneurship series, and I'm looking forward to catching you next week on our new episode as we define failure with Elina and Matthew. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Woo!
Yay.